world who really don't understand. Freedom has many difficulties, but we have never had to put a wall up to keep our people in.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we are back in style. Yes, because last week, as you know, we had a bit of problems. Just before the start of the show, we lost our camera, and then we tried our best, guys, to replace it with the cheaper option. It didn't really work out.
Yeah, because I thought you were gonna let me say it.
Yeah, no, please.
No, it was just so when we did the show on Saturday and the camera didn't work, and that was horrible. But then a couple people came forward and donated, and so then we went ahead and bought like a cheaper one of the same brand that we had before, and then he set it up to do his Italian show, and it was it wasn't like this, it was like this, so it was like a not a wide angle, and so I couldn't be in the show anymore. So then luckily an Italian that sustains his Italian show donated, and then we had people that sustain our show donate, and so we're here for the month, and we have a new camera, and we're really grateful, and I have all these people to thank, and your Italian sponsor,
my Italian American sponsor, Pina, who lives here in the United States for many years, and she immediately wanted to help. The other camera is now being used. As you can see, we have it placed here. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to do some rogue like side thing, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries.
I have so many names here. So okay, we have Daniel Estes and Malgorzata Minta, and we have James Robert Thompson, Sean Rose, Don H, Dennis Bolanos Enriquez, Ellen Thicatre. So all those people donated to the show.
Let's give them an applause. Yeah,
magnifique.
An applause. Here we go with an applause. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Really, sincerely.
We're very grateful.
Thank you to our sponsors.
God is good.
Yes, absolutely. And we are able to bring you at least one show a week. Today we will be discussing what is happening with Obama and Kamala, who resurrected to defend their democratic values as Soros organized, as we pre-announced a couple of weeks ago, this event, hands off, not only in the United States but also in Europe. So we're going to show you a few. Unfortunately, in Berlin, out of all places.
I know that place.
Well, we have a lot of leftists over there. Remember, guys, if you want to help us out, GoFundMe or Cash App. You can find the handle at riozagami.com together with my latest articles. Not been very active because there is a reason. There is a reason.
There is a good reason.
I hope before the end of the month to be able to finally publish volume 12 of my confessions. It is one of my best books. So I know I always say that, but this time
you're always right.
I'm getting better and better and better, and this new book is groundbreaking for many reasons, and I'm gonna, of course, talk more about it towards the end of the month. But we have also a lot of news, guys, because like we said, there is things happening all over the place. The tariffs, of course, of Donald J. Trump, but we have these people that are protesting against Trump in Berlin, out of all places. So I wanted to immediately bring you there. And I want to, in the meantime, also place our GoFundMe here on the screen for those who want to help us out.
And for those guys, everybody who comes here and watches a live show and shares it and puts a like, we really appreciate that too, because you give us a boost, because when we see people here, we know, if you see like 5 people and you're trying to do a show, even if 2,000 or 3,000 people show up later and watch it, I mean, it's kind of nice to have people here and interested in the show. So we thank you guys too. We appreciate everyone.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do this, especially now.
Of course, I want to thank all those people who purchase my books, which is another way to support the show. And as you know, Christy has her cooking book, which is also very useful if you want to transform your kitchen in a 5-star Italian restaurant. The Zagami Family Cookbook, authentic Italian cooking. A great. I want to show all the books. See? All the books here. Ooh, wow. Well, guys, at this point, welcome everybody on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, on Rumble. This is going to be an extraordinary show. We have a lot of news. Elon Musk today talking remotely at the Northern League Congress in Italy. He said some very important things, especially because there is growing censorship. Well, when you have a Franco-German alliance conducting the European Union, no wonder that censorship is increasing, but even Great Britain is not doing much better. Like we said, first of all, let's go to Berlin and see what's happening over there, because this hands-off protest is extending also outside of the United States. And I really don't understand. What kind of right they have to involve with our own American politics in this way. Check them out. One thing that I can testimony, and I'm sure Christy can do, is that the Americans who go abroad, especially the ones who go to places like Berlin, they're really leftist of the worst kind. Isn't that true, Christian?
the billionaires from taking our tax dollars, our public services, ministerial. They are running agencies of the United States.
He doesn't have any respect for democracy. All this talk about a third term is just all, I think it's just all to get us our mind somewhere else when there's all this stuff happening.
Oh, the way he's destroying our democracy, I mean, dismounting the whole government and his politics, his everything. I'm sorry to say, I'm a New Yorker originally, and I know what Trump's about. That guy is, you know, he's poison. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's a con man. He should be in prison.
Trying to control voters. Wähler einzufangen.
We have to show solidarity with all the demonstrations in 1,000 cities today in the USA. We have to show that we are not in agreement with what is happening in the USA. People in Germany, people in Europe need to.
Okay, people like this, do they understand that we have a democratic elected president here in the United States? I mean, Soros sponsors this event as well as all the events that are currently taking place all over the United States. But some experts like this guy, I mean, talking rubbish about things that he shouldn't be talking about. Well, God save us from these useful idiots of the Soros cause.
Know that this is not something that is happening with our approval, and we need to get onto our feet and out in the streets to show that this is something that will not pass. The Trump government is taking the USA into basically Germany of the 1930s. It's that simple. He's attacking the press.
The Germany of the 1930s. Let me remind you where you're talking from. You're talking from Berlin. And what I'm about to show you, it's actually demonstrating that you haven't really changed that much. German car giants shake off their Nazi past to prepare for war. Berlin rearmament drive could see automotive assembly lines retooled to roll out tanks. And of course, they show all these postcards from a past in which, of course, Volkswagen was a Nazi car, just like Porsche. And Ferdinand Porsche became widely known as the brilliant engineer, but he was also a Nazi, like most of them. But guys, these are the useful idiots of Alex and George Soros.
He's trying to tell people what they should teach their children in school. He's taking money from Social Security, from Medicare. People are going to be hungry, they're going to be sick and not be able to get medical treatment. He is destroying, ignoring due process. He is kidnapping legal residents off the streets and
legal residents off the streets. Oh man, you see the lies that these Americans, these leftists to go abroad spread? Yeah. I mean, residents from this, no, MS-13, Treneragua, gangsters with no right to be here in the United States, who have come here illegally. What are you talking about?
Whatsoever by a judge, by the courts, and admitting that they have not broken any laws. Of course, everybody has to be unhappy with what the USA has become and its reputation. The reputation. But
listen, you are in Berlin, stay in that shithole, which I mean, it is a shithole, yeah, and it is a dangerous place filled with Muslims who are continuously threatening Americans, but they don't say that. But Elon Musk said that today. Now, I can't make you hear the English version. I have Elon Musk kind of like dubbed in Italian, but he actually said that there are constant terrorist attacks in Europe that are not even reported at the moment, and that there is going to be mass casualties soon. This is what Elon Musk said, amongst other things, today, in which he accused Europe of being fascist because the fascist value of freedom of censoring freedom of speech is being reflected in the EU. I mean, Elon Musk is absolutely correct in denouncing the EU. I had to flee the EU. And encouraging censorship, it is something that has, unfortunately, fascist as well as communist roots. All dictatorships censor. So what is happening in the EU and in Great Britain is outrageous. Let me translate for you a moment Elon Musk intervening at the Northern League event in Italy with Matteo Salvini functioning as a kind of interviewer in this whole thing.
Tema su cui la Lega si batte da sempre, Elon, è la difesa della libertà di parola.
So one of the subjects that Northern League he claims is very much dedicated to is the freedom of speech. Well, let me tell you, nobody really complained when they censored me or they brought me in front of judges that were clearly censorship. They were acting on behalf of political motivations.
And your mother had a strong opinion about Trump right from the beginning.
Well, but that is something that has nothing to do with this.
Well,
We're
I
talking about the Northern League. People in Europe have strong opinions because they're ignorant. But this is the Northern League conference, and there is an interviewer who is himself the Deputy Prime Minister of Italy at the moment, Matteo Salvini.
Sui social, ecco, perché secondo te, da professionista del settore, negli Stati Uniti e nell'Unione Europea la sinistra invece vuole
the courage of freedom? I don't know what kind of courage they have when Leo Zagami had to flee the country, but whatever.
Di pensiero e di parola.
Yes, I think as a general rule.
So here, basically, Elon Musk says that it is a rule for democracies to have freedom of speech. And where that freedom of speech is not exercised, obviously, you are talking about a fascist state. So it's Elon Musk denouncing what is happening in Europe, especially after he was actually attacked yesterday by one of the EU representatives who said that Elon Musk is not respecting the rules of the EU. So the EU has specific rules for the freedom of speech. And when you put rules to the freedom of speech, it's no longer freedom of speech.
Freedom doesn't have rules.
Freedom is freedom, like they say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just like this EU Commission Nazi, because that's what she is, makes it very clear what the EU stands for today.
We have the rules which have to be complied with, and otherwise there will be sanctions. I think that the confidence has been weakened, and I had quite high level of confidence when it comes to Twitter. I have to say that we worked with knowledgeable people, with the lawyers, with the sociologists who understood that they have to behave in some decent way, not to cause really big harm to the society. I always felt that this notion of responsibility was there. So this is what I don't feel from Elon Musk personally.
So here we see what is the position of these people in the EU who are obviously censoring, but it's not only the EU. Like I said, the Great Britain is nothing better. They have an equal amount of censorship. And I'm going to show you an article today about this new internet law, which is policing and censoring people left, right, and center. So, I mean, the Great Britain, even after doing Brexit, hasn't really acquired any kind of freedom. They don't really embrace the American values like they used to. I mean, the EU, unfortunately, including Great Britain, are a reflection of the worst Orwellian approach. Here it says online forums, please read, Christine.
Based in the United States that rely on First Amendment protection are getting caught up in internet regulations in the UK, where they now risk being blocked under recent legislation.
So this is the UK, and it says hailed by the British government
as the world's first online safety law.
We need a safety law. I mean, that is the kind of place.
The Online Safety Act became law in October 2023, but the duties related to the regulation of so-called illegal content took effect on March 17th. The law requires online platforms to implement measures to protect people in the UK from criminal activity with far-reaching implications for the internet. Gab, an American social media network, positions itself as a champion of free speech.
And they had a problem. They actually received a threat from Great Britain. They received an $18 million fine threat of more than 23 million.
For what?
If they don't comply with their censorship regulation. So this is the kind of values they had. So when we are seeing Ursula, also in regard to the tariffs, when we're talking about the tariffs, you have to understand, guys, that the tariffs reflect also the ongoing division also of views on things like freedom of speech, because America has Facebook, has Twitter X, has YouTube, has all the platforms that everybody around the world uses. But they are creating problems for these platforms. They are demanding these platforms to censor and not respect the First Amendment. So this is a big problem. That's why then the tariff, the whole thing about the tariff comes in. And I think that is quite important to understand that Elon Musk today, when he intervened while there is all this protest against him, against Trump going on here in America, which is quite shameful because these people, these leftists, even here in Palm Springs, are doing something without really knowing what they are doing. And there was actually Elon Musk who said, I dream of a European Union and a USA which have complete free exchange, because they will know if you have the reciprocity of simply doing what Vietnam has just done in the last few hours. Vietnam has said, okay, I'm not going to impose any tariffs on American goods. Vice versa, America will not impose any. So then it creates a free trade area. And Nike, which that makes all the stuff in Vietnam, has arisen immediately in Wall Street. So
yeah, I did. I saw that.
So let's see what Elon Musk said about his dream of a free economic zone between Europe and the United States of America.
Per l'Italia e per gli italiani.
A message of course, the Italians are quite worried because of these tariffs.
Spero che gli Stati Uniti e l'Europa riescano a realizzare, a creare una partnership molto stretta.
A strong partnership, a close partnership.
Spero che potrà essere un'alleanza più stretta, più forte.
It will be a stronger alliance. Create an economic union, but also a possibility, and this is quite innovative of Musk, that people can freely work here in the United States as well as in Europe without all the, I mean, I had to wait for my work permit. People, it's not very easy, and in the end, of course, I obtained my citizenship, but before that, my green card. I went through all the legal thing. But if you want to create between your biggest allies in Europe and America partnership, we could create a more intense partnership. Like I say, these tariffs that Trump has imposed that now are creating this big turmoil around the world are criticized by the very same people who have imposed us their scientific views on vaccines that didn't really work out and killed many people. They have imposed on us a mask for the whole duration of the pandemic. All those people that have imposed the most idiotic things now are the ones who indicate, you know, the Trump reform, because it is a reform. It's something that will change forever the global economy. Of course, it's not an easy task. I'm not saying it's an easy task. Trump is gambling all his presidential status, his political also status on this whole thing. And I don't believe that Trump is crazy and it doesn't, you know, I think that he has a plan and I think that it can work out. But of course, let's go back to Berlin to listen to these American experts who are a bunch of idiots.
The toilet. Everybody thinks, what's the matter with Americans? Why aren't they standing up to this? I think we were in shock and awe for a while, but we're starting to come to our senses and seeing there's nobody coming to save us. We got to do it ourselves. So today we're getting the start. This is just the start. We have to be ready to do this for years and years. And
years of what? I mean, just accept the fact that Trump is your president if you are American, and if you are in Berlin, just shut up and comply, because you are in the worst country in the world at the moment. Europe and Germany in particular have a level of censorship and of disregard for the First Amendment, which is really, I mean, it is terrible. And so this guy shouldn't even open his mouth, but this is how.
And maybe we'll regain our reputation in the world.
And then the crazy thing is that they have this fascismus, like, you know, they are the ones accusing Trump, Vance, and Musk of being fascist, but they are the ones who censor anybody that doesn't think like them. And then they have the vote from abroad thing. And of course, the German Polizei viewing these people who are often fellow Americans living abroad who want to, you know, somehow protest, and they do it also in front of Tesla in Berlin. So these are the idiots in Berlin, but at the same time we have idiots all over the United States today that are, of course, showing their dislike for Trump, for Elon Musk, and they do it with this hands-off protest that, of course, is sponsored by Soros. So, of course, they can protest as much as they want. They have the finances to do it. They're not just protesters that are, you know, doing this in their spare time. A lot of them are paid protesters. Let's not forget that.
Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Yes. I mean, I have... Time to fight! How can people unite? It's time to fight! Our country is under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that! When human rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that! When free speech rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that!
I mean, come on, guys. These are like brainwashed, completely brainwashed people. And if you want to really understand the mindset of these brainwashed people, I will suggest personally to read volume 11 of my Confessions, The Past, Present, and Future of Mind Control, because they are all under a form of mind control, or either they are paid and they are mercenaries, like we said, operating for George Soros. But this book... it's very important because it finally gives you a perspective of what mind control has been for a very long time in the history of mankind. I mean, it didn't start with just now. It didn't start even with the United States of America. Forms of mind control have been used for a very long time in the history of humanity, and also psychological operations have been used at a military level. And of course, we have Sun Tzu, The Art of War, which is very important, and I cite in my book, which is Sun Tzu is very important to understand also what's happening in the business world with China, because China has used for many decades Sun Tzu's teachings also not only when it comes to the military, but also in the economy. That's why Sun Tzu has become so influential, and even Alan Dulles, the first civilian director of the CIA, used to be fixated with Sun Tzu. So please get this book, because, I mean, you want to learn why somebody becomes an idiot like this, or maybe becomes a terrorist, or starts shooting at your local school. This is the book to understand what's behind all this. And there is a real crisis in mental health, but this crisis is really induced most of the time. So let's not forget that. Now, let's move further, because we have a lot of news today, and we want to thank our sponsors. Christy, please.
Okay. Daniel Estes, Dennis Bolanos Enriquez, Don H., Sean Rose, James Robert Thompson, Ellen Sicatre, and Malgar Zaraminta. Thank you, guys.
Now, I want to show you a couple of things, guys, very important here. Two things that might get you a little bit angry. This is a female fencer that takes a knee against a male opponent because she doesn't want to fight this male opponent, and she ends up with a disqualification. Now, you can't pretend to be a woman. Either you are a woman or you're not a woman. Now, California today has showed that once again they're a bunch of liberal idiots. What they did, Christy?
What did they do?
They did what, of course, they would do here in California. They rejected, the whole thing about abolishing this whole idiocy of men and women in the same sport. They of course sided with California represents at the moment, a liberal stronghold. So they want to keep transgenders in women's sports. So that is keeping transgender in women's sports in California. For them, it's like saying, "Oh, we are, Huh? Yeah, you are idiots. That's what you are. You are idiots because women for such a long time have fought for their rights. And now that they are actually finally considered at the same level of a man, they finally can, and they, instead in sports, that's what happens. California lawmakers reject bills to ban trans athletes' participation in girls' sports. So they want to have trans athletes in girls' sports here in California. And
can't the president do something?
I hope so.
Because women are going to get hurt. Girls are going to get hurt.
Here in California, these animals, these leftist animals.
They're animals.
That's what they are. Terrible.
They're not human. They're not human.
So taking the knee and protesting because she didn't want to fence with a male who parades as a woman. But this is not the worst thing I want to show you today. There is something else that also gives you an idea of how possessed are these leftists in defense of their alleged values. This is something to do instead with abortion. A pro-life woman who was simply interviewing somebody in the street gets brutally attacked by a pro-abortion extremist.
And I think that you just don't understand the magnitude of having a child.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one who admitted they would be okay with killing babies in foster care and killing children that have been abused.
That's not the point. What I'm saying.
That's really.
This is the kind of values. And behind these people who are simply demons, because that's what they are, there is their handlers who are just as demonic, if even more demonic. One of the candidates of this era to the office of Antichrist is definitely Barack Hussein Obama. And he has resurfaced, guys, with his rhetoric, with his condemnation of Donald J. Trump. Here he is. This guy, of course, is such an hypocrite, especially in his defense of freedom and freedom of speech, when we know what has happened under his watch and also under his friends, you know, under Biden, which was basically a puppet in the hand of Obama and Soros. So check this out.
More precious, which is, who are we as a country and what values do we stand for? And now, this is not just an abstraction, and I think this is one of the challenges that we have. And I saw this even before the last election. I think people tend to think, democracy, rule of law, independent judiciary, freedom of the press, that's all abstract stuff because it's not affecting the price of eggs. Well, you know what? It's about to affect the price of eggs. One of the things that has distinguished us in the past has been this basic idea that we are a rules-based society. What that means is that, you know what, I can support one candidate instead of another, and I don't have to worry that the police are going to come harass me or my customers. That's what happens in other places. That's what happens in Russia. We take for granted the idea that we don't have to pay bribes.
So he says Russia is corrupt and that he is superior because he's not corrupt. He's totally corrupt. So, I mean, this guy is hypocrisy impersonified.
Hire somebody's cousin in order to get a business permit. That's how we built the economy we did. That's why this place worked. And it has very concrete impacts on all of our lives. So, this is the first time I've been speaking publicly for a while. I've been watching a little bit. Yeah. Let me just close this portion of my remarks by saying it is up to all of us to fix this. It's not going to be because somebody comes and saves you.
Especially if that somebody is Obama, I don't think he's going to ever come and save you because he never saved you. He made this country worse. Somebody's asking, can you read me? Yes, KSP, whatever your name is. We can read you. Don't worry about it. You're not banned. Here, actually, we have less censorship in the Trump age that we ever had. we used to always have our channels removed. Shadow banning was a constant. Warnings from
I
Facebook.
still think we're shadow banned, though.
Well,
I
I mean,
think
now
so.
we don't. I mean, the problem here is that after years of being censored at the level that we have been censored, we were not able to build up. That's why we have 100 people now watching us live. Probably there will be a few thousand watching
they
us.
don't look for you and they give up. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean that is because people tend
And then
to
they
be
ask like years later.
a little bit lazy. But we want to thank our sponsors, the people who believe in us, the people who give us the possibility also of broadcasting, the people who purchase my books.
Yeah, those people, which weren't happening this week. I mean, hardly. I think we sold like nothing.
Well,
nothing and more nothing.
Purchase Leo Zagami's books because soon there is going to be a new one, and that's going to be a special
Books are the
one.
most important
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely, guys.
The books are why we do this. It's not for any other reason than to tell you about the books. So
yeah. But let's follow up on what Obama said. Because Obama, you see, has been criticized lately. There has been a book, an explosive book that has revealed that he has destroyed literally the Democratic Party with his own organization for power and money. So, I mean, he talks very well, but then after...
Not really.
No, well, he tries to be,
He used to talk well.
But he still has a sense of the rhetoric.
Well, he looked terrible.
Here you see the article. Barack Obama destroyed the Democratic Party by competing for power and money with his own organization. New book reveals this. Please read, Christy.
Okay. Former President Barack Obama sought to distance himself from the Democratic Party after leaving it in shambles following his departure from the White House, according to a new book. The book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, published by William Morrow and Company, claims that Obama was never a Democratic Party loyalist. Instead, the authors allege Obama curried favor from a group of Black professionals for his campaigns, unlike former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State and presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and former President Joe Biden. Additionally, Obama's creation of Organizing for Action, a nonprofit that launched in 2012 following Obama's re-election to advance his legislative priorities, fractured the Democratic Party, according to the book, authored by political journalists Jonathan Allen of NBC News and Amy Parnes of The Hill.
Thank you very much, Christy. Let's go back to Obama.
In this democracy is the citizen, the ordinary person, who says, no, that's not right. I do think one of the reasons that our commitment to democratic ideals has eroded is that we got pretty comfortable and complacent. You know, it has been easy during most of our lifetimes to say you are a progressive, or say you are for social justice, or say you're for free speech, and not have to pay a price for it. And now we're at one of those moments where...
I mean, it's quite ridiculous that he talks about free speech, no? I mean, that makes me really angry. I can't just...
He's just a dirty ashtray is all he is.
Yeah, and he's really a Machiavellic creature, because he really adopts all the techniques of the Prince of Machiavelli.
And darkness.
You know what? It's not enough just to say you're for something. You may actually have to do something and possibly sacrifice a little bit. So, yeah, if you're a law firm being threatened, you might have to say, okay, we will lose some business because we're going to stand for a principle. If you are a university.
And now he's, of course, implying criticism against Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump has, of course, stopped the financing of certain universities who were anti-Semitic and standing for Hamas. Now, I don't care what you think, guys, but Hamas is a terrorist group that should never be in charge of anything, let alone Gaza. And the people in Gaza, who are these people? They are a bunch of kids, most of them, who are brainwashed from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. And Hamas has not helped one of them, and their tunnels have always been closed for non-Hamas members. So when the attacks come from Israel, they don't protect their people. They protect their own mercenaries, because that's what Hamas is. And I explained really what Hamas is in this book, which I strongly advise you to get, which is volume 10 of my Confessions, which finally makes you understand the secrets of Islamic Freemasonry and the secret societies behind the eternal conflict in the Middle East, how Hamas was created by the Muslim Brotherhood, how the Muslim Brotherhood was created by British intelligence services, and what kind of use they made of their creations. NATO has always used these terrorists for their own strategy of tension. But of course, Barack Hussein Obama, is the godfather, the father, the creator of ISIS. So this is Barack Hussein Obama. Let's not forget that.
If you are a university, you may have to say, figure out, are we in fact doing things right? Have we in fact violated our own values, our own code, violated the law in some fashion? If not, and you're just being intimidated, well, you should be able to say, well, that's why we got this big endowment. We'll stand up for what we believe in, and then we'll pay our researchers for a while out of that endowment, and we'll give up the extra wing or the fancy gymnasium that we can delay that for a couple of years, because academic freedom might be a little more important.
Why don't you just tell those universities to apologize for encouraging terrorists on their grounds, because that's what they are. No, he has to instead say to those universities, why don't you just renounce to this and that and carry on with your ideas of freedom, which are, I mean, here in America, to have in American universities these terrorist groups who are openly, I mean, they're Salafists. They're not Muslim, moderate Muslims, if they even exist. They are Salafists. They are jihadists. They are criminals who will never have been tolerated after 9/11 on any university ground. But now, wow, now we have to bow down to Barack Hussein Obama, this closet Muslim who created ISIS.
For most of human history, and to this day in most of places in the world, there is a cost to challenging the powers that be, particularly if they're abusing that power. And this idea, and I've noticed this among some wealthier folks who, after George Floyd, they were right there, and a bunch of companies were talking about how they cared about diversity and they wanted to do this and they were all for that, and they are mute right now. But what that tells me is it was okay when it was cool and trendy.
Well, cool and trendy because Soros was financing that cool and trendy with billions of dollars, and because you were brainwashing people left, right, and center. And what happened with George Floyd that summer was a disgrace, a real disgrace, which has created more and more division. This identity politics needs to stop. This is just something that characterizes let's not forget, guys, the KKK was promoted after the Civil War by the Democratic Party, not by the Republicans. This is a historic reality. So, I mean, they are the party of segregation, not the Republican Party. But of course, they don't like people to say that.
And when it's not so much. And that, I think, is what we have to, each of us has to examine in our own hearts. Is all right, we say we're for equality. Are we willing to fight for it? Are we going to risk something for it? We say that we're for rule of law.
So,
are we going to?
What does it mean, risking? What it means? Are you inciting a civil war? Because it seems like this is what he's doing here.
Yeah, it seems like it.
You know, is he inciting a civil war? And you see, when we are seeing this this conjunction of Obama re-emerging, Kamala re-emerging, Soros financing this hands-off protest all over the United States, this is them encouraging a civil unrest on a massive scale, and we need to investigate that. I hope that the DOJ and Pam Bondi and also Kash Patel investigate what is happening at the moment.
Stick to that when it's tough, not when it's easy. We believe in freedom of speech. Do we stand up for freedom of speech when the other person talking is saying stuff that infuriates us and is wrong and hurtful? Do we still believe in it?
Well, thank PBS News for this piece of Obama. But like I said, it's not only Barack Hussein Obama who resurrected from hell where he resides. Usually that's his natural home. We have then also Kamala. Kamala, guys, hasn't got any better. She still looks completely drunk. She doesn't make any sense. She just giggles and is happy. I warned you so. Ha, 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 ha. The stock market's a crash. I warned you so. Ha. Kamala, another demon.
One person, when a few stand with the courage, that is the courage exhibited by the leaders in this room every day, to stand, to have the courage to say, I feel fear. The courage to say what is happening is wrong. The courage to say that there is a way that we must chart to get through this. Understanding our power in the democracy we still have if we hold on to it. Courage is contagious.
What could have been, everyone? What could have been?
Courage is contagious. And then you have Yen Sagi that comes in and it's like, ah! Guys, these demons, I mean, you really need a cross to keep them distant from you. I mean, what do you think, Christy? I mean,
I think that it looks like she kisses a dirty ashtray. So, and Obama looks like a dirty ashtray. I mean, they just look filthy. Both of them, to me, they look filthy. Their souls are just like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that, but they just don't. I don't like to do this, but it's just that these people are so bad. I don't like to do this.
At the moment, we have seen, guys, though, in all this chaos, at least Russia reasoning a little bit, and the Russian negotiator Dmitry visited Washington, D.C., went on a media blitz, and he actually said some very interesting things. Especially on, you know, also on the sanctions. He said there's no need to lift the sanctions because, you see, the idea now that Russia has, the majority of the Russian people have, is that they have survived these sanctions. They have demonstrated to the world that the GDP is actually grown to 4%, while instead Europe is only 1%. But listen to what he says on Fox.
have a lot of sanctions put on your country by the U.S., and that runs the gamut: importation of Russian oil, energy products into the U.S., sanctions on oil-carrying vessels, other sectors, financial services, aerospace, metals, and mining. In fact, you had to get a waiver on sanctions to travel here to the U.S. Is lifting sanctions part of the condition for the ceasefire that you're talking about?
Well, Russia is not asking for lifting of sanctions, because if you look at our GDP growth, it's actually 4% last year versus just 1% in Europe. If you look at our debt to GDP, it's 18% versus 100% in Europe. So I think what we see is that actually US companies lost around $300 billion of foregone profit from withdrawing from Russia. So I think sanctions may be lifted when US companies want to go back, want to take advantage of business opportunities in Russia. But right now, Russia is not making any preconditions, not asking for specific sanction relief.
There are the sanctions, but there still is some trade with Russia. If you look at the numbers, 526.1 million exports to Russia, 3 billion imports from Russia. It is down significantly with all the sanctions. Were you surprised that Russia was not on the tariff list announced by President Trump yesterday?
Well, I think it was more of a technical issue
Not
for
part of this negotiation?
Trump administration, not a big part, or not a part of this negotiation too much. But I think there is basically a huge opportunity for us to have dialogue and to do business together. And by the way, we talked to many people in the administration, some people in the legislative branch, and they always, once you ask them, hey, how about Russia and US doing more business, restoring relationship, they actually are surprised and say, well, maybe that's a good idea. So I think there is a positive outcome of not only Ukraine discussions, but of restoring ties and having lots of partnership and economic opportunities between US.
I think there is great opportunities if we leave Europe out. I think Europe needs to be left out because they don't reflect our values anymore. They are anti-Christian in nature. They have showed that over and over again. But this is Putin's representative. There is a lot of talk about, Putin and NATO also saying that Putin needs to finally come to the table in a concrete way. But I mean, what this guy has said also regarding Trump as an historic leader makes me think that there is an ongoing talks which are positive between Russia and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
President Putin, what's he like?
Well, he's actually a man of his word. And many people try to question this and undermine it, but I've seen President Putin, if he commits to something, if he agrees to something, it gets done. And President Putin wants solutions. And if you think about Russia, really sort of 20 years ago, where economy was down and, there was really disarray and chaos, he is the leader who brought Russia back together, put economy on track, and really transformed Russia in many ways. So he is a historical leader, just as President Trump is a historical leader. And I think they can really work together to make history happen. If they cannot achieve major progress in US-Russia relations, I think few leaders can.
Okay,
This is a great thing, I think he said, no? Especially when we relate it instead to these Europeans like von der Leyen, that really reflect the harsh reality of this Europe, which is, guys, Europe, the European Union might have a lot of states, but in reality it's only the Germans and the French that count. And the Jesuits put together this Franco-German alliance after the Second World War because they wanted to bring peace back to Europe. But now they're actually the ones who want war.
Good morning. President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. I deeply regret this choice. Let's be clear-eyed about the immense consequences. The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe, also for the most vulnerable countries, which are now subject to some of the highest US tariffs. The opposite of what we wanted to achieve. The tariffs will also hurt consumers around the world. It will be felt immediately. Millions of citizens will face higher grocery bills. Medication will cost more, as well as transportation. Inflation will go up. And this is hurting in particular the most vulnerable citizens. All businesses, big and small, will suffer from day one. From greater uncertainty to the disruption of supply chains, to burdensome bureaucracy, the costs of doing business with the United States will drastically increase. And what is more, there seems to be no order in the disorder, no clear path through the complexity and chaos that is being created.
No, there's a very clear path, Ursula. It's a reciprocity thing, you know. If you don't tax all the goods, because tariff is a tax, coming into Europe, we are not gonna do the same.
Trying to be fair.
I mean, it's about creating what Elon Musk said, no, a free market situation in which goods can circulate
They don't
freely.
want that.
But they don't want that. And also, there's another thing. Do you think that America, which has oil and gas in abundance, it's scared about a confrontation with Europe, which has, yes, 500 million people, but they are brainwashed citizens with no oil, no gas, no weapons, no nothing, who want to go in war and promote this whole thing? You know, I mean, watching this article, I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's insane. It's insane also that the article is actually appearing on the Telegraph out of all places. I mean, it's like,
oh boy,
and
I
that's
just can't believe this.
They were showing, you know, German car giants shake off their Nazi past. No, you're not. If you are with Zelensky, who is a Nazi, you're not shaking any Nazi past. You're actually embracing your Nazi past, which is the reason why you are actually also losing contact with our values, the values of freedom of speech, of freedom of expression. And that's why today Elon Musk said that Europe is following the same trajectory as, you know, Hitler, Stalin. I mean, he actually mentioned those people. So I said for many years that Europe is the Fourth Reich. I said it in volume 7 of my Confessions. And today Elon Musk has confirmed it by stating that the level of censorship is the same level of censorship there was during Nazism. And also talking about fascism doesn't mean that you are taking a political stand, because communism is no better, because he's mentioned Hitler, but he mentioned also Stalin. He mentioned, so he's just simply indicating that what is happening at the moment in Europe after the Cold War, Europe has gradually embraced this liberal, oppressive, technocratic stand, because, you see, Europe was founded after the Second World War to, in a way, put a barrier against the expanding Soviet Union, and also to replace what happened in, you know, with the failure of Nazism. And so all this was constructed behind the scenes. There were, of course, Club Bilderberg, there was a Club of Rome, there was then the World Economic Forum, and these realities have manifested ultimately into an oppressive technocracy, because that's what they are. Their plan is not to free you and to live life like we are living here in America, following the American dream. It's following the European nightmare, the Orwellian 1984 nightmare that was envisioned by George Orwell is becoming the reality also in Great Britain, because they are no better. Now, we're talking about my mother, and my mother had the kind of same at the beginning of the show. You mentioned my mother, no? And I said my mother also viewed things in Europe with the mentality of somebody who had lived the Second World War, who disliked profoundly Germans,
for sure,
and then
she's never been,
and she never wanted to go to Germany for that reason. But then she actually, falls into the European trap because she lives in Italy. And I tell her, how can you stand Europe the
She
way
said there was no such thing as communism.
and
Remember?
and instead communism is the ideology of these people, because communism was created by the Illuminati. Let's not forget that it's the Freemasons, the socialist Freemason, because when socialism is all this ism, you know, fascism, communism, but the roots are in socialism. I mean, both communism and fascism come from socialism. National socialism comes from socialism, which is Nazism. So these are the ideologies of the past. When instead we have this great new ideology
So
with Trump,
wonderful.
MAGA.
And it's something new and different.
Make your country great without giving up your sovereignty. Join the world in a different way, because globalism is not working.
I saw on the picketers one sign, and because Nick Shirley, we follow him, and he
Yes.
went to the thing, and so
Yes.
we were watching him,
Yes.
and one of the protesters said "Make America Afraid Again," and then he was wearing a suit, and they threw water on him.
I mean, terrible, absolutely terrible.
Really mean, horrible people.
Before leaving you, I want to just go back to NATO. NATO, and of course, has had this meeting with all the foreign ministers. There was also the presence of Rubio. Rubio has said that they are not leaving NATO. But let's see what Ruth, the new Secretary General of NATO, has said.
The consensus from the discussions these 2 days is that as the world grows more dangerous, we need NATO more than ever. And we are united in our commitment to each other in this alliance. That commitment is not only principled, based on common values and shared history. It is deeply practical. We face real threats to our security, the most direct from Russia, but also from others, state and non-state, in the high north, from the south, on the eastern flank, and in cyberspace. Whatever the challenges we face, we need to make sure that we have the forces and capabilities necessary to deter aggression and defend ourselves should anyone make the mistake of attacking. So we will invest more, much more, as so many allies have already begun to do.
Well, that is what Trump said from the first term. You need to invest more, and they were actually laughing at him. And now finally they realize that that's the only solution. But there is not only that. I mean, the values, as you can see, have been put aside. He said it's not only the values, because the values are not there anymore. They have different values from what we have here in America. There is no freedom in Europe, and that's the reality. Let's see what Rubio said in these 2 brief clips.
We're an active, as we speak right now, the United States is as active in NATO as it has ever been. And some of this hysteria and hyperbole that I see in the global media and some domestic media in the United States about NATO is unwarranted. President Trump's made clear he supports NATO. We're going to remain in NATO. He's made clear.
Okay, we're going to remain in NATO. So that's clear. Of course, like you heard from Ruth, they need to pay the bills, because it's not only, you know, a bunch of countries who are living off Americans who pay instead for them the bills. There is also, in regards to Rubio, though, the confirmation that, yes, you might not be able to trust Putin, but we have to trust his actions. It's all about his actions in the next few weeks. What is Putin going to do? So I personally think that you can trust Putin because he's always been a man of his word. But these words by Rubio are interesting.
Point I make, everybody, people come, oh, well, Putin, you can't trust him. It's not about trusting Putin. It's not about trusting anybody. This is about actions. If you're interested in peace, you stop fighting. And you lay out the conditions by which you're willing to end a war, and they have to be reasonable conditions, right? Not crazy stuff.
And I think that there is reasonable conditions, and that we are about to say bye-bye to this war, as we are able to also end the show on a light note because, guys, no matter what Obama and Kamala do to resurrect their demonic powers in the political arena, Americans now need to believe that their country is being rebuilt from scratch. There is, of course, some hardship, when you have to reconstruct factories that were moved to other countries and all that. It's not going to be easy. But we need to have faith in Trump because he's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. I think that, yesterday I was watching Cuomo, who is on News Nation, and he was like, it seems like Trump is getting his advice from ChatGPT. He doesn't know what he's doing. Come on, man. I mean, what kind of clown are you, Cuomo? I know that you are a Demoncrat together with your disgraced brother. It seemed like he was changing a little bit in his views, but instead he goes back to be the same old Cuomo from CNN. Continue to support the Leo Zagami show. We will try to be back also with the show in the middle of the week, but of course, to do that, we need another sponsor. Casey, please tell us a little bit how is the situation.
No,
please
we're not coming back on Wednesday. I mean, we have to get a pretty substantial
because
donation.
Tell a little bit what happened so that people know a little bit what happened.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have a sponsor for Saturday, and that's okay.
Yes.
But we also had lost one of our main sponsors that
at the end of December.
Last year, and so we were running with that, and he was paying for the show, and now we're only getting. Well,
at least we have one sponsor.
We have one.
Well, no, we have a few sponsors that are starting to help us. I hope they will continue. And we have one guy who is, of course, helping us more than others.
We really appreciate you. And if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
But let's thank all our sponsors of today, even the ones, Daniel S., but also the ones who give.
I appreciate everybody.
We appreciate all your donations.
Everyone, every single one. Malgarzada Minta, and Ellen Secatre, and James Robert Thompson, Sean Rose, and Dawn, and Dennis Bolanos, Enriquez. Yes. So thank you very much. It's nice to read all these names.
Thank you so much. And thank you also for the people who purchased the books, guys. Don't forget you have also Christie's cookbook as well.
Let me talk about Gwen Stefani.
Tell us what's happening with Gwen Stefani, because I hear even a Catholic priest doing a YouTube video about it. What's going on with Gwen Stefani?
Anyway, I heard that she is supporting the. She's never been political, which is good for her. She's just she does good music and has great fashion.
Okay.
And but she decided to support JD Vance in his prayer app. And so she did it on her Instagram. She has like 7 million followers. And as soon as she started to talk about God and Christianity and how she thought it was good, she was just saying it was a good thing. She wasn't really putting an idea out there and pushing it on people. She's never done that. She's always just been about the music. And she's married to a Christian. She's actually Catholic. But anyway, so her supporters now are bashing her. They've turned on her, and they're calling her, what have you been, a hidden MAGA? And I mean, why are you doing it? Shouldn't even be a question for anybody with a human soul to be questioning this. You should be happy that she's doing this.
But this shows you once again that the left now is totally anti-Christian in nature. And as soon as you support God or Jesus Christ in any way,
they're all turning on her. So we support you here at the Leo Zagami Show, Gwen. And anytime you want to come on the show and talk about God, we're here for you, because I'm definitely a fan.
Thank you so much, Christy, for that take on what is happening with Gwen Stefani. We appreciate, of course, all of you. Put a like, subscribe to all our channels, make this video viral if you are on X. And here we go with the music of Vincenzo Viceversa, who does these beautiful covers for our books, but also makes great music. And the images are those of our friend Albert, who was just operated. We wish him all the best for his eyes. He had an operation on his eyes. So auguri, Alberto. And here we go with Vincenzo's music, Medieval!
In that time, Our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction.
No, don't do that.
In the negative utopia,
Guys, that was fun.
organization, dehumanization. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization. Technology, social organization, dehumanization. Technology, social organization.